we spoke earlier with the global chairman of PricewaterhouseCoopers, Dennis Nally, and I began by asking him his views on the way India is being perceived by the global community as well as international investors at a time when there's plenty of hope, enthusiasm and excitement about the kind of reforms the new government can initiate. Mr. Nally.
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here in India as well. And yeah, I think a strong sense of excitement from the international perspective in terms of the changes that are taking place here in India, the way the new government has really reached out internationally to set the right tone for driving this country forward. So early days, but I think it's all been very positively and very well received in the international community.
What's the sense that PwC is getting of the kind of business confidence that exists in India right now? We know we were talking about an almost gloom and doom scenario before elections, the overall business sentiment tanking, and there was no hope. But clearly, the new government has brought with it renewed hope. Many are also believing that investments haven't really picked up, and even though business confidence has changed slightly, we still have a long way to go. What's the assessment in your view and in the view of PwC?
Sure. It's first off, I'd say some of the early dialogue around pro-business, pro-investment, pro-reform, has created a level of excitement for the international community. I think that's one of the reasons why you see so much interest, being expressed by the business community here. Certainly, I think that's one of the reasons why you see what's happening in the financial markets right here in India in terms of the degree of optimism that emanates from those early days. I would say most recently, the recent agreement that has been reached between the United States and India on the trade agreements, I think is a really, really positive step forward. Again, I think it demonstrates the willingness for India to really move forward with the international community. The Bali agreement hopefully now will progress and get signed, and I think that's going to be a really, really positive development for the global trade agenda. So, one example where I think, it's a clear demonstration that there's a real desire of this government to really move forward in a very, very positive pro-business, pro-growth environment, and I think that's creating a lot of excitement here.
All right, Mr. Nally, I have to specifically talk to you about your report that has been released that talks about India becoming a $10 trillion economy in 20 years. What will it take for India to grow to that size? Share with us some of the details and strategies that your report has outlined.
Well, there's a number of things that need to take place here. First off, in order to achieve that type of growth target, that would translate into an average growth rate over the next 20 years of about 9%. And that contrasts to maybe the 5.5% that we would tag as the baseline. So a number of reforms need to take place. We've identified 10 sectors that we think are absolutely critical to really think about new strategies, new ways of doing business, not only on the base case, but also from a winning leap standpoint. And we try to, capture that. So, for example, some of the critical sectors that are ripe for investment today, deal with the whole health sector, thinking fundamentally different about how health services are really provided to really meet the needs of the 1.3 billion people that are here in India, the need for reform in education. You think about the number of jobs that are going to be necessary to be created, over the next 20 years, probably a significant number of jobs that will really be necessary to drive this economy on a go-forward basis. How you skill those individuals, how you get them ready to be successful, to play an important role in the economy, fundamentally different than, even the last several years. Level of investment in infrastructure, absolutely critical to achieve the kind of growth goals that we've established. And I would say underpinning all of that, quite frankly, is what has to happen with technology. Today, for example, research and development represents about 0.8% of the GDP of this country. We think it has to triple to about 2.4% in order to get the type of innovation, to get the type of productivity, efficiencies, and really to create the world-class capabilities that will allow India to compete in a very different way on a go-forward basis. So a number of things have to happen to really make these goals and objectives be realized over the next 15 to 20 years.
Okay. So what is it that investors are then looking for at this point in time to ensure that India moves on that path of 9% growth, of turning into a $10 trillion economy by 2034?
So first off, I think your point around this economy has tremendous potential. It's been acknowledged, accepted, so many positive things about this country in terms of its potential. But to your point, in order to realize that potential, a number of the reforms, have to take place. And so what investors are looking for, they're looking for, consistency. They're looking for clarity of rules. They're looking for, a pro-business investment policy that allows for stability over a long period of time. So those are the types of reforms that the business community is looking for. Those are the types of reforms that the new government is certainly prepared to propose, and therefore this upcoming budget, I think, is going to be really critical to demonstrate that some of these critical reforms are actually incorporated into the budget process this year.
Mr. Nally, it's important you mentioned clarity in policy. You mentioned the fact that, doing business in India should be easier, because I'd like to take forward that particular point. What needs to be done to ensure the government improves its rankings on the entire ease of doing business here? Because that continues to be a big worry as far as international investors are concerned. Just the number of regulations they have to go through, the kind of pressure they face. So what needs to be done to ensure that we're improving the ease of doing business in India?
Well, first off, I'd say in order to achieve the type of growth that is envisioned in the report itself, no one individual or group can deal with this on their own. For example, governments need to work together with the private sector. This is absolutely critical. The degree of collaboration that needs to take place, whether it's policies, whether it's regulations, whether it's innovation, whether it's spending on R&D, all of these are so interconnected in order to drive the agenda that we're looking for. And therefore, having closer coordination, collaboration between, the private sector and governments, I think is absolutely critical from a reform agenda standpoint.
All right, Mr. Nally, it's clearly a long bucket list, a huge wish list that has been put out by just about everyone in different quarters, different stakeholders, saying that this is our wish list, this is what we think the government needs to do. But it's also time to prioritize and in that wish list. What, according to you, should be the priorities then at a time when the government is being expected to do a lot?
Well, now you're on to a very interesting issue, which I like to refer to is trust, the lack of trust that exists really in society today, whether it's trust in government, whether it's trust in the business community, trust in public sectors. All of this is, quite frankly, when I look around the world, one of the critical issues that really needs to be addressed from a longer-term sustainability standpoint. And to your point, I really do believe the business community has a very important role to play here in terms of its part in regaining the trust of public. They need to think about the longer-term sustainability, the longer-term relevance of business, how business contributes in a positive way to societal development. So it's not just about short-term performance, short-term profitability, but what the business community is really doing to really help a country like India achieve its potential. I think that's a critical role that we each have to play and should play as a part of the success of this country on a go-forward basis.
All right, Mr. Nally, let's shift our focus away from India and talk about the global economy. What's the health of the global economy looking like right now? Is recovery gathering momentum, or we still, again, have a long way to go there?
Well, the economy, as we all know, the global economy, that is very fragile. You've got parts of the economy that is really struggling. Europe, for example, slow growth. Germany just announced some numbers this past several weeks, which would suggest their economy is really slowing. China, as we all know, has slowed its growth to 7%. Some of the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, for example, clearly in a recession or near a recession. So it's a very volatile environment that I think is going to be with us for a period of months, if not years, in terms of the global economic picture. Having said that, I translate back to India. That means that the potential here certainly is significant. With the right type of policies, the right type of a reform agenda, I think this economy can really continue to reach its real potential.
Mr. Nally, last question. You mentioned China, and comparisons between India and China are obvious. Share with us how the two economies stack out right now, the strengths and the weaknesses, and what India can really play on.
Well, I think they're two fundamentally different economies. That is China versus India. India has the positive demographic environment. We all like to talk about the demographic dividend that could be realized. China, as we all know, has an aging workforce. With that comes a lot of challenges in terms of what they have to deal with. Clearly, the move to a consumption-based economy versus an export economy, which is what China is very much focused on. Not easy to pull off, not easy to do, but one unless that they're very much focused on. So I think the overall macroeconomic issues that are facing each of these major economies is fundamentally different, and that's why when we talk about India, when we talk about what the potential is, I think India, has to look at those fundamentals and look at the potential in a way that's very different than other parts of the world. To learn from what has been done, but not necessarily follow that, would be the recipe for success as we think about the longer term here.